Hello, everyone. Welcome back to What's Coming Out in the World of Indie. I'm, of course, your host, I suppose, in better terms, Ocean Johnson, joined by the real man who runs this entire gig, Mike Zoke. I just kind of ask him ignorant questions about games that I am too unfortunate not to hear about myself. But luckily for Mike, he keeps me very informed. And then we have this amazing list to come back to every single week. And this week we have a big list, and there's some really interesting, cool ones on this list. I think anyone who's looking for pixel art style or more low key art style games is going to be really loving the games on offer this week. Um, but I suppose we'll jump in with the first one, which I saw, which gave me very much vibes of Little Nightmares in certain
Yep.
elements when I saw the trailer. A Tale of Paper Refolded. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so A Tale of Paper Refolded is actually a remaster of a cult classic indie game, A Tale of Paper. It kind of flew under the radar when it released for the first time a few years ago, but it does very much have that Little Nightmares heavy atmosphere.
Mhm.
It's a little bit more platformy than Little Nightmares is. Little Nightmares has some, but it's kind of subtle. It's more about puzzle solving than it is about the platforming.
Mhm.
A Tale of Paper has a slightly larger emphasis on that platforming, but still a really heavy atmosphere. Or sorry, emphasis on the puzzle solving. It's very creepy. It's very airy in a lot of ways. If you liked Little Nightmares, this is definitely a game to keep on your radar. I really loved it when I played it for the first time a few years ago. I believe it should have become an indie classic,
Mhm.
but like I said, it kind of got swept under the rug, as unfortunately happens to far too many indie games. So make sure to check that out when it comes out on August 19th.
Yes, so that will be out on the day of recording, so it should be out now. So yeah, definitely go and give a look at that over on our Twitter, obviously, and on Mike's Indie Game Tracker Twitter. We'll have all the games pretty much linked there for you to check out as well. So August 19th, that one comes out. Also coming out on the same day, something completely on the other end of the spectrum, which I absolutely love because I don't know if you saw on Twitter over it was the last few weeks, somebody had made an Elden Ring Game Boy D-Make.
I have seen a little bit about that.
Yeah, and that has gotten me very nostalgic for the old pixel art sort of games you would find on those sort of genres, and seeing
Yep.
One Bit Adventure on the list really got me into it. So tell me a little bit more about it.
So the reason I picked One Bit Adventure is because there's another game that came out a few months ago called Gloomgrave, which
Mm,
is also only on Steam and mobile devices, much like One Bit Adventure. But instead of being a top-down bit-styled type game, it's a first-person bit-styled game where and you attack the same way. You attack by moving into the enemies. You move, they move, you move, they move, kind of turn-based
mm,
attack combat. But One Bit Adventure looked exactly like that, but at a different camera angle. So they're both turn-based roguelikes. They have slightly different concepts because with Gloomgrave you're like stuck in a dungeon and you're trying to escape it. And then with One Bit Adventure, it has more of a open world esque type environment where you're outside and you're really just trying to survive. That is your
mm.
primary goal. Think of it like the Lone Wolf mission in Halo Reach. Um, your only objective is to not die. Unfortunately, it's a roguelike, which means you're going to die a lot most likely.
Yeah.
But fortunately, you do have a large variety of classes and abilities to choose from to make each run a little bit more unique than the one before it.
Yeah, for sure. I think roguelikes generally turn me off a little bit because of obviously the repetitive nature of dying and going back at it again.
Yep.
But uh, if the
There's a
trailers
balance they
use
need to strike.
yes, 100%. I think even if they don't strike that balance, the music from the trailer alone has me pumped to play it whenever it comes
Yeah,
out.
it has really, really great chiptune music to it that I
Mm,
really enjoy.
100%. So, as again, that also comes out on August 19th. Next on the list, this is one I am really interested in and surprised I didn't hear anything about as it's coming to Xbox Game Pass. Midnight Fight Express. Just initially, I got very much a mix of sort of, let's just say, if Xbox did Sifu and fused it with John Wick. That's kind of my general take on it, but maybe I'm a little uninformed on it, Mike, am I?
No, no, that's pretty close. The way I pictured it is it just looks like Hotline Miami, except for you
Mm,
don't die in one hit. It's very chaotic, very over the top action. Um, Beautiful art style. I love the top down kind of flat color scheme that it uses. It really lets the lighting be dynamic. But I honestly have a confession with this game.
Okay.
So I run Game Pass Counter, right?
Mhm.
And for a year, I thought this game's name was Midnight Flight Express. It said it on Game Pass Counter for months. Every single time I posted about it on Twitter, I said Midnight Flight Express. And people were like, oh, you've got a typo. And I was like, that's not a typo. I just genuinely thought this game's name was Midnight Flight Express. That is not anything to be held against the team or their marketing or anything. That's me. That's just my brain, my thinking meat, not being top tier. I honestly had close to a mental breakdown last month when I had it pointed out to me by someone that it's Midnight Fight Express. Like, I went into an existential crisis. Like, it feels like the what is it, the syndrome, what is it called, where you remember things differently than everyone else does. Oh, I
Oh,
hear you.
Mandela
Like the
effect.
Berenstein Bears.
The Mandela effect.
The Mandela effect, yeah. That's what it feels like for me. Like, I swear to God it was called Midnight Flight Express. Which makes no sense, because I always knew it took place on a train, where there were trains that you could go on and stuff, and subways. I don't know. I thought it was like flight, as in like you were running away from something, like you were escaping in a flight. I don't know, honestly. But it looks great. It looks awesome. Sifu's a great comparison to it. Hotline Miami is a great comparison to it. It is that top-down brawler type gameplay. But yeah, you're basically going up against crime lords and gangsters and the mafia and shit. So I'm hyped. It looks great. It's day one on Game Pass. I'm very sorry that I had your name wrong for a year, but I will make it up for you by promoting the crap out of your game and playing it day one.
Yeah, it's definitely day one for me as well. It looks absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to give it a proper look. Next on the list is probably, the upcoming games that we're going to be looking at now are ones that I really am taking an interest in. Islets, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Looks
I believe it's
absolutely phenomenal.
islets.
Islets, okay. But that
But
actually looks
island is because that's what it's about. It's about floating islands. So it's like mini
okay.
islands. So I
All
think
right.
it's island. I could be wrong. You could be right. I have no idea. That's how I pictured it. But yeah,
We may have both different opinions on the name of it, but needless to say, I think it looks
it's
great.
one
I
of
think
them.
both of us going to agree.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully
hopefully.
one of them. But the game looks great. Basically, the world has been fractured into these tiny little islands that are floating up in the sky, and this takes a very unique twist on the Metroidvania genre, because most of them are dark and gloomy, all about the challenge. You have games like Blasphemous, Hollow Knight, all those games that are all about, the pain, suffering, world sucks, blah blah blah. This one's wholesome. This is a wholesome Metroidvania where your goal is to piece back together the world. And I really like one of the gameplay mechanics that is in this. Every single time, so you have maps of every little island that you go to. As you can tell, I am trying very hard to avoid saying the game's name. But every single time you piece them together, the maps merge together as well. So each island has their own map, but when you connect them, the maps become one map instead of two separate maps. So you're building the world together, and then as a Metroidvania, you're typically going back to previous areas that you have been to further explore when you get new abilities. But with these ones, like, you're using the previous ones to just build an entire new map rather than just exploring one area, going to the next area, stuff like that, maybe getting an elevator or something to take you back from the other one. You're actually connecting each of the worlds together, which I think is really unique, and I'm very excited for a wholesome Metroidvania.
I think my initial impression was Studio Ghibli if they made a game that was inspired by both Hollow Knight and Flynn, Son of Crimson.
That is kind of how they actually market the game. I believe if you go to its Steam page, they say something almost exactly like that in the description.
Well, it's clearly broken through then, so fair play to them for that. Next on the list, I think, is the game I'm most looking forward to this week, just because I really like these sort of gloomy, apocalyptic atmospheres, especially
You're
in
like the
sort of
typical
side-scrollers.
Metroidvanias.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of these sort of things. I like the look of them.
Hey,
I
there's
like
a
playing
reason
them
they're
for
successful.
yeah, I like playing them for a few minutes and then I put them down and forget about they exist and then come back to them like, oh, this was great. But
Yep,
Hack
I do.
is coming out. Tell me a little bit about this. What makes this sort of special in its own right?
So I really like Hack because it takes the Metroidvania style that we're used to, which is pretty much a gameplay first, narrative second, not a
Mhm.
lot of dialogue, not a lot of world building. You kind of explore, and as you do that, you learn more about the game itself with most Metroidvanias. Whereas this one, at least from the trailers and stuff, you have a lot of dialogue, a lot of characters. You get to know the main character that you're playing as very well. He's very open about his thoughts while you're playing in the situation that he's in. But I mean, I just really love the art style as well. Much like you, I love these dark and gloomy Metroidvanias. Like I said, there's a reason they're so successful. Um, I also don't mind when I find one that's very different. But yeah, it's supposed to be all about solving mysteries, which is also pretty different for a Metroidvania. But obviously, you still have your leveling up abilities, your tough boss fights, the platforming. If you're a fan of like Metroid Dread that just came out last year, or Hollow Knight, or Blasphemous, or any of the 5 bajillion different Metroidvanias out there, Hack is one that should definitely be on your list because it looks top notch. It looks very tight, very polished, which is something that I look for as like the number one priority with Metroidvanias or time-based platformers is you need to be smooth because if you're not, I'm not going to have a fun time with your game.
100%. That comes out on August 25th. Also coming out on August 25th is a game that, yeah, it looks spooky, is what I'd say. Kind of a top-down
It's a survival horror game. It should be
survival horror
spooky.
game. Yeah, it probably should be then, yes. Starless, tell me a little bit about it before I embarrass myself
So
even more.
you might have heard of this game. It's called Alien Isolation. This is
What?
that,
Really?
but top down
Okay.
and indie. But it's basically the same premise. You're exploring a space station. There's monsters lurking that can jump out of you from walls and doors and ceilings.
Hmm.
But it's top down. If you get caught, they murder you slowly, where you watch as you die.
Lovely.
It's got all the juice you would expect in a survival horror game. It's got all of it. It's got all of it. But I mean, I had to include it just because I really love horror games, and
Mhm.
you recently played through Dead Space, which is a
Yes, yes.
masterpiece.
You're right.
And this is a space-based horror game, which were in short supply. But after Summer Games Fest, obviously we're getting 5 bajillion of them in the next year. Which personally, I would have been fine if they announced more sci-fi horror games
Mm.
at Summer Games Fest. Everyone else was very upset, but I was there like, hell yeah! So Starless is up my book. If you like sci-fi, you like horror, you like aliens, you like Dead Space, you like all that creepy space alien crap, this is a game for you. Um, you might not be accustomed to the top-down survival horror games. There's not very many of them. If you're looking for something to maybe dive into before this comes out that might scratch a similar itch, I highly recommend a game called Darkwood.
Mhm.
Phenomenal top-down survival horror game. It came out a few years ago. It's on just about any platform you can imagine. Phenomenal. It
Mhm.
will give you a similar feel as to what Starless is going.
100%. I suppose also coming out on the 25th of August, we have a game that is pretty much the polar opposite of what we've just talked about, more of a puzzle-esque game with a really cute art style, something akin to what is it called? Don't Let Us Starve, is that the name of the game? Uh
Yes.
yes.
Funny enough, they also mentioned "Don't Starve" in their marketing materials as
I'm
like
re-
the
I
inspiration
am
for like
queuing
no
up.
other.
They are marketing to me and me
They
alone.
are. They're marketing. They're like, we know Odrin's gaming history, so we're gonna label everything as to what he does. Okay, so like no other, basically you are an older gentleman.
Mhm.
You have decided to basically abandon your previous life to pursue, I can speak, your lifelong dream of treasure hunting. It is a narrative based, kind of point and clicky puzzle solving type game. A short and sweet experience about it basically not being too late at any point in your life to do what you always wanted to do. Because you are playing an older man. He has dark white hair, a big beard. He can't move that fast. He's an older guy. It's very clear that's who he is.
Mhm.
but he decides, at this point in his life, he's like, I'm going to do it. I am going to do what I have dreamed about doing my entire life. And he sets out on this adventure. You get to ride through this adventure with him. And does he succeed? I don't know. It looks wholesome. I'm guessing he does. But it could also be an Old Yeller situation. I can't make any promises.
Mhm. Well, it sounds interesting. I don't know if it's top of my list for this week, but certainly looks like it'll scratch an itch for people who love puzzle games. Premise alone screams to me after playing one Uncharted game. And absolutely looking forward to seeing what it's like, anyways, on August 25th. Now, our final game on the list that comes out on August 25th is one that really drew me in with its beautiful art style and character design. It's I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. Give me a bit of a
Yes,
rundown.
so this is our Japanese game of the week. It's not actually developed by a Japanese company, but if you look at the art style, um, it took inspiration from anime and from those style of visual novel type games. So
Mm,
it's an honorary pick for this week because there wasn't a whole lot. Um, but yeah, so basically you are on an alien planet. You are a teenager. It is a narrative-based RPG with card-based battles, which if you know anything about me, I love me some card-based games. In fact, I need to shout out something real quick. Inscription comes out on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 next week. And if you do not play it, so help me God,
well, maybe we'll have it
there will be
included
a
next week
reckoning.
on the list.
It will be, but I need to talk about it now too. I need to shout out Inscription every chance I got. That game
An
blew my
extra
mind.
exclusive, yeah.
Only reason I'm mentioning is because they posted something today about how it's going to have unique DualSense features on the PS5, so it's in my brain currently.
Very nice.
My brain doesn't hold things in it very long though, so I could have forgot, but I didn't. But yeah, gorgeous art style. It mixes visual novel type storytelling with card based RPGs. There is battling, but it's all not combat battling. So some of the card based gameplay that you have is you battling to like solve research and stuff. So like you'll find a plant life on the alien planet that you're on, and you'll basically use your cards, which have different skills or abilities or experimentation methods on them.
Mm,
And if you are able to play them in a way that meets the minimum requirement threshold to succeed in that research, it will. Which I thought was pretty cool, taking that card based mechanics into something that isn't just killing another thing.
yeah.
But it's a romance game. It's a narrative game. It's a strategy game. It's got a little bit for a lot of different people in it.
Mhm,
It's personally one of the ones that I'm most excited for on the list, just because I think it looks very unique.
mhm. Well, it does sound very good. And, usually card games aren't my sort of cup of tea, really, to be honest. And that's where we, I suppose, differ quite a bit, Mike. No, I can
You
see the
better
death
be
stare.
playing
Please, no.
Inscription.
Oh, of course, yeah. Inscription is the exception, I think, to that rule in general. Everyone should play Inscription. Um,
Good.
but I've already finished Inscription, Mike. You know this.
Play it again.
I will play it again. Don't you worry. I might even stream it. Small plug.
I love it.
um,
I'm sorry. I love Inscription so much.
yeah, no,
So
you're
much.
preaching to the
I
choir
played
here.
Death's Door last year, and I was like, "This is it. This is my indie of the year." And then I played Inscription, and I was like, "Fuck Death's Door. That shit doesn't mean anything to me anymore."
While we're on the topic of Inscription, sorry, this is derailed a little bit, but before we jump on to
It
our
is.
second last game of the week, if anyone is interested in the composer's thoughts on Inscription before the game comes out on PS5, we actually did an interview with the wonderful Jonah Senzel a couple of months back. That's also
I
live
do
on the
recall
channel.
that now that you mention it.
Yes. And there's
That was a
also a
good
really
one.
fun little feature where we got him to react to some fan made songs for the game. So that's also a fun little tidbit you should take a look at. Um, Penultimate game of the week, August 26th. I am so delighted that I do not need to
Yeah.
come up with a pun this week because the pun has been made for me. Brock, the Investigator. I absolutely adore it. Tell me everything you need to know.
This is the world's first punch and click. Not point and click. This is a punch and click. It mixes point and click mechanics with your classic Streets of Rage beat 'em up mechanics. You are an alligator investigator in this world where humans have vanished and animals, sentient animals, have taken over. The rich have their nice little dome that they hide in while all the poor and lower class citizens suffer in the streets. You are an investigator who lives in these areas, who tries to help the citizens there. Not unfortunately, very fortunately, you solve most of your problems by beating the shit out of stuff. And I don't just mean people. You punch down doors that are in your way. You just beat the fuck out of them until they
Mhm.
shatter. I don't know. It's great. It's humorous. It's got a great classic point and click looking art style. It reminds me a lot of Double Fine's point and click games,
Hmm.
like Day of the Tentacle and Full Throttle, Grim Fandango, stuff like that. It's very reminiscent in style, both in art style and narrative style to those, where it has this kind of funny exterior, but a lot of them have like an actual deep, meaningful sub layer to it, which comes from the class conflict that's in Brock the Investigator. But basically, I'm hyped. It's supposed to be very consequential, so every decision you make can have pretty major consequences to the
Mhm.
story, characters, and yourself as Brock. Which I also like. I really like it when the games that I play feel like their consequences matter, because far too often it's like you play a game and it feels like nothing you did mattered. You were
Yeah.
just destined. You made all of these what seemed like massive choices, but no matter what, you find out you would have had the same ending or same characters died or whatever the entire time.
Mhm.
Not saying that is necessarily a detriment to a game, but it's nice when you feel like what you're doing is important.
Yeah. 100%. Um, but yeah, that's definitely what I'm going to be looking out for on August 26th. Again, very similar theme here of just cute animals being put in, well, not so much cute situations. Bear and Breakfast was a bit different to this, I'd imagine.
Yes,
Um,
Bear and Breakfast was cute. This looks cute, but is actually, from the sounds of it, quite grim,
Deceptively, yeah.
deceptively.
Um, so
It's
the
like Cult
final
of the
game,
Lamb.
well, Cult of the, in fairness now, the title of Cult of the Lamb is kind
That's
of telling
true.
you what
That
you're
was a
getting
little
into.
more upfront, but also you just see these cute little Animal Crossing characters, and then you tear their flesh in pieces to sacrifice them to your god, to make your minions happy.
Much like a real life cult, looks okay on the outside. You go in a little bit deeper. Oh my god, what's this? Human
Oh my god.
sacrifice?
Yup.
um, moving swiftly on. Final game of the week, also coming out on August 26th. This game, the trailer for it, it felt like a fever dream. I don't know what happened in this
This game is a
trailer.
fever dream. It's supposed to be. So this is, if I've mentioned it on episodes in the past, I love surrealism and I
Hmm.
love games that are surrealist. This is like the definition of a surrealist game. Nothing makes sense. It is a brutal, tough as nails 3D platformer. It's not very long. Very few people have gotten to the end of it. Nobody has spoiled the ending as far as I'm aware. The creator has warned people not to beat the game.
Warned people not to beat the game.
He has warned. I don't know what it means. I haven't been able to get to the end of it, because it's out on one platform already, but it's releasing elsewhere soon.
Hmm.
I have not been able to get to it. It's so hard, but it's so fun. The music's insane. The settings are crazy. It's like nothing I've ever experienced in a 3D platformer before. But yes, you can find statements from the creator telling streamers and people that tested his game before to not finish the game. He has
Is
warned people.
for any particular reason, or is it just so that they don't spoil it?
We don't know.
That's
I
so
don't think it's
sus.
spoilers. I think it's something to do with the ending itself. But it makes me want to try and beat it more.
It would be very funny if it was just he didn't program an ending. That would
That would be
be
fun. I would 10
that'd
out
be
of
top
10
tier.
game
Yeah,
instantly.
that would be top tier.
Like that would be
Um,
top tier. It's hard as shit. You get to the what's supposed to be the finals level. He's like, I never fucking expected anybody to get past that.
that's intrigued me so much more in this game where I was kind of willing to write this off, but now that you've mentioned all that context to it, I kind of want to try it.
Yeah,
Maybe
it
that's what
looks
he's.
great.
This guy is a master of marketing. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, but this game, anyways, back again comes out on August 26th. Also coming to Switch, I believe, which worries me a little because having previous experience with first-person games on Switch, it's absolutely atrocious to try and use the Joy Cons unless you're using a
Yes.
Pro controller.
This is a pro controller game.
Yes,
I would say.
100%. That's the list for this week. Obviously, as we do every week, Mike, what are the 3 games you're most looking forward to?
All right, so the number one is Brock the Investigator.
Hmm.
This is a game that I've had my eye on for a long time. It looks great. I love point and click games. I like punching things. I like cute animals. I like grim stories. Um, I'm sold instantly. Day one, I will be there. Number two is probably gonna go to Midnight Fight Express.
Mhm.
Even though I have the sin of thinking its name was Midnight Flight Express for an entire year of my life, it looks phenomenal. Like it looks just extremely great. I really love it. And three would be Hack. I love
Mm.
these super fast paced Mega Man esque action platformers, which that has plus Metroidvania. You just put them together and you have me sold instantly. Beautiful art style, great setting, great world building, cool character. I love the aesthetic. I love solving mysteries. I'm there. Day one.
Yeah. I think anything, people might say, there's no big games on this list. There's no Stray, there's no Inscription on this week's list. But honestly, there's such a solid lineup of games for this week. I mean, the top three are great, as you've mentioned, but like even trying to pick of, I mightn't put Investigator in there, but I'm struggling to think whether I would put One Bit Adventure in or would I put in Islands. I hope that's what it's
I
called. But like as I'm saying, like I'm struggling to think of what games I would put into my top three. This is probably the toughest week I've had trying to consider it. But
It's a really good week. And
yeah,
I think it's deceptively good because I
hmm,
think most people when they look at this list, the only game that a lot of people have probably heard of before this episode is Midnight Fight Express.
yes, yeah,
But I feel like every game on this list looks like a top tier game. They all offer something unique. They all offer their own experience. And yeah, I mean, obviously my backlog is endless, but hopefully I'm able to get to all of these one day.
yeah. And just a special condolences to all the people who were hoping that Midnight Flight Express would be coming out this week. Unfortunately, that's
Hey,
not a real thing.
hey,
So it's gonna.
Elgin,
So- I'm
Elgin,
sorry, I had to do it. I had to do it. But Midnight Fight Express is coming out this week. That's definitely, I think, top of my list to play. It looks really, really good. Along with, as we already mentioned, Hack, um, Highlands. Hopefully, that's what it's called, and One Bit Adventure. I'm like whispering it as if it matters. I'm still saying it wrong. But yeah, a really good range of games this week. I think this is arguably. It's up there as one of the strongest weeks we've had. And I look forward to seeing what we have on option next week. Obviously, we also know Inscription. Will there be some more top tier games coming next week? You'll have to, I suppose,
you're
subscribe
gonna
and
open up
follow
the
to find out.
document next week, and it's just gonna be Inscription 10 times. There's
Honestly,
gonna be a
and
different paragraph each time.
it would still be a 30-minute episode, if
It
not
would
more.
be. I could talk
Um,
about Inscription for a year and still not be done. I love
all
that
right.
game.
Well, we'll save that conversation for next week. And honestly, when it comes out in PS5, we may have to get you on for a longer discussion about Inscription because I'm dying to talk about it with someone else.
Yeah,
Um,
phenomenal game.
Phenomenal. So that ends us for this week. As always, you can follow us. Our socials be in the description below. Wonderful Mike is over on Twitter. You can follow their wonderful personal account and of course Indie Games Tracker on Twitter as well. They're also linked down below. But until next week, if you have any recommendations of games that we haven't put on the list this week that you think we should take a look at, please leave them in the comments below. And if that's everything, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.